Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's a fine Saturday here in Central Florida, and we're going to have a special guest today. Mike Hawthorne is going to join me, and we're going to talk about his comic art career and kind of how he managed to get through the pandemic, like many of us, and what he's got on his drawing table today. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of go over the ground rules because we are doing an art sale as well at the end of the interview, and this is one where we're not working with some of the people that we've used in the past. So fulfillment is actually going to be handled by the team at Cadence Comic Art. So a little different than usual, and the claims are going to happen in the chat. So let me go ahead and just review that with you really quickly, and I'll go over it again before we start the art sale later in the show. So today, when you want to claim artwork, you just need to type the word claim and the lot number in the chat. Every slide that I'll show will have the lot number on it, and makes it really easy. As I always encourage everybody watching the show to take notes while you're looking at the lots of art, because you can claim the art at any time. So you might be looking at lot 10. You're more than willing to go back and claim lot 1 if you want to do that. So it just keeps things easier to take notes while you're doing that. And like I mentioned, the claims are going to be all fulfilled by Cadence Comic Art. So at the end of the show, if you've claimed any lots of artwork today, you're going to be emailing Andrew at Cadence Comic Art, and you're going to let him know what your lot numbers were, as well as include your mailing address. And of course, I give him a spreadsheet, so it's always best if you can also include your YouTube handle if it doesn't match your, if you're not using your real name there. And just makes things easier for them. So keep that in mind as well. And I'll show that email address numerous times throughout the show. And as far as payment goes, Cadence handles payment in several different ways. Typically, they would do a PayPal invoice, but they also take Zelle and Venmo, and you just have to request that. Money orders are also acceptable. On some items, or probably most items, they do offer time payments if you need it, typically at 25% down, but payment in full is always expected within 90 days. And then as far as shipping goes, the prices you see on the art today is not including shipping. So here are the rates on US shipping versus international. There's lots of international options as well. So, but these are the base ones: 25 or 35 for US and $40 for international. So there you have it. But I'll go over some of that again before we get into the art sale portion of these things. But I've got Mike in the green room, and I'm going to bring him into the chat right now. We can get started. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Bill?
Oh man, I'm fantastic. Like I say, I always tell everybody that I talk with art collectors and art dealers all the time, but I really enjoy getting to talk with creators because it's just something different. And having like I mentioned to you before the show, I went to art college. I wanted to be a comic artist, so it's cool for me to kind of live vicariously through these conversations that I get to have with guys like yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And we spend so much time alone in our studios that we're happy to talk to anyone at some point. So, but it's a pleasure talking with you, man. Yeah, and it sounds like we're both from pretty hardcore art background, so we have a lot to connect on. So that's cool.
Oh yeah. No, it's I've run Comic Art Fans for almost 20 years now, but leading up to that, my dream was always to be an illustrator. So, that in its own way is kind of my way of living the hobby, by being able to look at all the artwork that gets posted there all the time. And, and again, since the pandemic, doing shows like this. So, but let's talk about you. The one thing, I tried doing a bit of research, Mike, but I didn't really see too many early interviews with you that were out there. So tell me a bit about yourself and how you initially kind of gravitated to wanting to be an illustrator and how that led to your comics career.
Oh yeah, right on. That's funny. It's not that I'm going to go back to the site thing just because I'm a big fan of the site, and for me, it's a little bit like a time machine because I can kind of go and see my favorite artist sketches over the years and how they've developed. And so it's a great site. As far as my work, there probably wasn't a point where I didn't plan on becoming a comic artist. I can recall, coming across like early X-Men comics and thinking like there's actual people's names down. So that means this is an actual job. So that's for me. Ended up going to art school and studying painting, and it's probably wasn't necessary to become a comic artist, but it's something I still cherish. Having that background in sort of formal fine art helped me quite a bit, sort of ground my work in some stuff that I was already attracted to in other people's work. So, and then I spent most of my college and high school years sending out submissions to people and just could not get work whatsoever. So after graduating from college, like shortly after that, my mother passed away, and I just sort of felt this tremendous Catholic guilt for having been poor when she died. So I threw myself into self-publishing kind of foolishly, and uh, I went out of business very, very quickly. But my wife jokes that it was sort of my master's program in comics, and people saw it, and I got very lucky in that. Matt Wagner was another guy that was from the Philly area. We had the same illustration professor, but like maybe 10, 15 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to connect with him at a show in Philly, and he ended up giving me my big break. He and Diana Schultz at Dark Horse on a book called Grendel, Black, White, and Red, and it was off to the races after that. Just sort of like it's a little like being a contractor. You build somebody's porch, and then the neighbors see the porch and go, "Hey, it's a pretty good porch. Who did that?" So that's kind of what happened with my career. I got very, very lucky.
Well, that's awesome. So was the self-publishing, was that the Hysteria books?
Yeah, it was Hysteria. I got it in my head that people would want to read this cyberpunk comic set on a Caribbean island that was loosely based on Puerto Rico with like an all Latin cast back in the late 90s. And surprise, surprise, the world absolutely didn't want to read it then. So it didn't do so well, but it did great in the ways that probably mattered most. It was a tough time for the market, and Diamond had some pretty strict rules with distribution. You had to hit a certain number of sales for them to distribute you, which makes perfect sense. I never held it against them. And I also had it in my head that I was going to do it monthly. Most indie books at the time were doing it every other month or every quarter. I was pretty fast, so I thought I would set myself apart by doing it monthly, which just meant I went out of business in 3 months instead of 6. But people saw the book, and that's really what I needed at that point in my career. Plus, I got to learn how to do all of it, right, from writing a solicitation to doing the cover and everything in between. So I'm very lucky, very lucky.
And you worked with, you had a few other creators involved too, right? I think Mike Oeming did some, like a pinup or something.
Yeah,
I had him on the show last weekend, and when we were talking afterwards, he's like, "Oh yeah, Mike and I know each other. We've done a few things together."
Yeah, well, Mike and I go way, way, way back. We're personal friends. I mean, even if we weren't in comics together, we would be close friends.
And honestly, I just now noticed Mike is actually in the audience.
Is he? Hey, Mike, what's happening, man? I don't get to see Mike as much as I'd like since he moved to the West Coast, but when he was still here in Jersey, we would get together. Our kids know each other. We'd go to there's a thing here in Central PA called Dutch Wonderland. We took our kids there, when they were little, and he's just he's salt of the earth, just an amazing human being. So I'm proud to know him. And he did do a pinup for Hysteria a couple. Hysteria bounced around quite a bit from self-publishing to doing short stories at various publishers, from Oni to Slave Labor, which the Slave Labor one was funny because they did a short story in an anthology called Love and I don't remember, but the publisher didn't remember putting out Hysteria, just to sort of give context of where I was in my career. So even the people who were putting out Hysteria stories didn't necessarily recall putting out Hysteria stories, but it was just one of those things I kept throwing out there, and I think I loved it so much that other artists seemed to get it. And Mike was one of those guys that got it very, very early, and I'm super grateful for it. Yeah, he's been super supportive.
No, that's fantastic. Why is it that Pennsylvania has some of the best parks? I used to take my kids to Knoebels all the time.
Okay, so it's funny that you said Knoebels, right? Because if you were from any other part of the world, you just say Nobles. It's
exactly. I went through enough that I knew how to pronounce it.
Yeah. So, Knoebels is a great old school amusement park. It's one of the ones where you don't pay admission to get in. You just walk in and then you buy tickets to get on rides. It's awesome. If you're ever in the middle of Pennsylvania, it's a good place to visit. It's really, really great. I don't know why we also have I've never been to this one, but it's on the way to Pittsburgh, called Del Grosso's. They're like a spaghetti
I've heard of it too,
company.
but never went to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's on the pop side. So Pennsylvania has this sort of imaginary line where on the east we call it soda, on the west they call it pop, and so you tend to
Yes.
not go to the pop side if you're from the soda side. But yeah, I don't know. We like our amusement parks, man. We're near Hershey Park, which is a big one for us. So
Yeah, I've been there a few times, but
yeah,
Knoebels was always our go-to. I mean, every
it
summer
really
when
is
the
great.
kids were young, yeah, I think for like 8 years in a row, we took
Yeah.
the kids there.
Yeah, it's awesome. It really is. If you can get to go, and it has this great old vibe where you can. There's all these pavilions. You can just bring your own food and barbecue. You don't have to even dump money into like trash food there. It's really cool.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Very well run.
Yeah.
So, so you did the. We should just jump into the pandemic,
Okay.
but in a weird way. But I wanted to say that just you've clearly you're very much about educating other creators as well, and you've kind of even sort of got a business model wrapped around that through your store, your own store and everything too.
Yeah.
But you seem to have your hands in a lot of different things. I mean, you've got a Patreon going on, you've got your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you do it all because and then you're doing monthly books. So that's a lot of work for one guy.
It is. I'm not well, Bill. Something's wrong with me. I think I think of that scene in Citizen Kane where the guy tells Kane like, "Hey, we all loved you, and it was never enough. You always had to do too much." No, I don't know why. The education thing I didn't plan. I sort of fell into. I teach at a school here in Pennsylvania called the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design. I teach mostly anatomy, but some figure drawing. And I'd never wanted to pursue education. And I got invited to speak at the school after I had worked on a film called Hop. If you've seen it, I'm sorry.
Not familiar with it.
It's
I
about
should look it up though.
No, I mean you can if you don't like yourself, but you can. It's about the Easter Bunny, and yeah, I don't know, whatever.
Oh, wait a minute! I think I know what that is.
Yeah,
I think my kids have seen that.
So I did the storyboards for it. So I apologize to your kids for me. But they asked me to come to the school to speak. I spoke, and that somehow ended up with me doing the 24-hour comic day with them, and I was having a great time. And then they said, "You want to teach a class?" And like a dummy, I was high on like soda and pizza at 3 a.m, and I agreed to it. And I woke up the next day realizing like, holy shit, I got to teach at a college now. So I used to hand draw all my lecture handouts. And by the end of the year, I realized I had like 120 some pages of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed a way to share them with subsequent students in other classes. And we ended up putting it on a site for free, just so kids just to have like a repository for the thing.
Sure.
And this was before, I had a Drive account and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I was having to pay fees because so many people, I guess word just got out. It was kind of a Khan Academy thing where I was just giving this stuff to students and then other people started to pick it up. So then it sort of grew into where we had to charge for it. It was like, I forget if we did $1 or $2. And people started asking for a print version, which we ended up kickstarting, and it did really well. And all of a sudden I was in this like self-publishing business again, and doing, art books and education books and cheat codes and all this stuff. So it's been amazing. And like you said, we did that over the pandemic. When it looked like things were going to be bad, I turned to my wife and I said, we're going to sort of do the opposite of what, like everybody's sort of thinking like, oh my God, our Kickstarters are going to be terrible. And I thought, I'm going to double down and do more Kickstarters because I just felt like I can't sit around and wait for, work to come back in, and it was sort of pencils down over at Marvel. And the irony is they just released Wild Cards, which I was drawing before the pandemic. And Marvel, it makes it look like I bounced back and forth between Marvel and DC. I have not. I drew that before the pandemic. We quit it. They shut it down, and then when the pandemic started back up, I had already moved on to another book, and I turned it down. So, but I didn't want to wait on work, and I don't. It's very difficult for me to sort of just sit on my hands. So we doubled down and did a bunch of new Kickstarters and really revved up the Patreon. So I sort of self-publish a quarterly art magazine thing through the Patreon, and it just went amazingly well. And I'd love to do more of that stuff, frankly. And I've been slowly bringing Hysteria back through the Patreon. So it's all coming full circle.
Yeah, I thought I read something about that you were working on Hysteria again.
Yeah, I did. I think I did. So I knew I couldn't do just a straight up comic through the Patreon. So I started essentially just making it one panel at a time and sharing the process stuff on there. So we got up to like 8 or 9 pages of new content, and been showing some of the old stuff, and it's been fun. It's a great, most of my work is sort of hidden behind this veil of distribution, right? There's you and there's companies, and then there's the readers, but you rarely have, because I didn't do conventions at the time, I was very little interaction. So it was very cool to start interacting with people directly through the Patreon and going back to shows, and it's been cool. The pandemic was sort of a reminder of there's a real genuine community behind this thing, and I need to get back to that.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for art collectors and I think artists as well. I mean, it was, a lot of artists started doing, commissions when they weren't doing them before. Guys like yourself were doing your own, own projects. So it was kind of a boon for the hobby. I mean, we had a lot more opportunity to interact with creators too. That's why, I hadn't done a live stream until the pandemic happened. And
wow.
And if it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd still be doing it here. No, I wouldn't have done it. I don't think so. I'll tell you, I lost a lot of free time doing it. I mean, but it's probably been the best experience I've had in the hobby in 20 years, the last 2 years of doing these things.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's true. And the thing is, I don't believe, I hope everybody appreciates how fortunate we all are to have this kind of connection with the creators too, because, since we did more virtual cons, or artists did shows with comic shops and things. And, you really got to interact with creators who you might not get to see at a con. You just think of all the Europeans that just got exposed to a lot of American creators that they couldn't see before. Maybe they bought artwork from them, or they're fans of them from their comics. But yeah, I mean, it really opened things up, I think, a lot. And I really think that we're going to see a lot more innovation in this area in the next 10 years through live streams and purchase opportunities. To see Whatnot out there. I mean, it's all about.
Whatnot's been crazy. I have a friend that's pushing me to do that, and I've been live streaming before the pandemic, so I felt comfortable sliding into that, and I ended up doing that for a lot of the clients. I mean, Disney, obviously that's a big umbrella, and so I got because I had experience live streaming, I was able to, when the books sort of shut down, I was able to slide into a lot of that. So I was doing stuff for, how to draw animals for the Discovery Channel, which is under that. Is it Discovery or no? Wait, National Geographic. My bad. I'm mixing up my corporate conglomerates. Sorry.
You don't check the check when it comes in.
Is it clear? Then I don't care who it came from. No, I think it was Nat Geo, and then I did a lot of live streams for Marvel itself on their Instagram and those things are big productions. They don't look like much, but they have this whole production team behind the scenes on the phone going, move the camera this way, that way. You sound stupid. Say something different. Like, I speak a little Spanish, so I did some in Spanish. Even you mentioned, overseas, like, picked up a lot of fans that didn't realize. Like, my mother was from Puerto Rico, but with my, gringo last name, no one ever notices. So, my father wasn't. So yeah, it opened up a lot of stuff. Like, there was, although I had been live streaming, people weren't quite paying attention to it like they were during the pandemic, like you said. Mm-hmm. It was cool. I get emails from people who were not necessarily fans of my work, but like their kids saw me, how to draw Miles Morales on YouTube. And they're like, that's amazing. That kept my kid busy for hours while we've been pent up in the house. Sure. And that was kind of a beautiful thing, I thought. I don't get to normally help out around fans' houses with their kids, driving them nuts when they're stuck in the house all day. So that was cool.
No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah. I can see why that would have worked out, and it's true. I mean, I think that those sorts of things, and that they'll live forever. You're going to probably be getting emails from people, for a very long time about those things, and that's all good. It's all about keeping your name out there, right?
It's very cool, and I mean, like your name. I think recognition is probably pretty fleeting. I am very lucky in that people like my work. But there's an army of comic artists that have come and gone, and people will forget. And I'm sure I'll just be another guy that oh, that guy who used to draw Deadpool. I know that during my lifetime, I will have been very, very lucky in that. Uh, Fans have always been kind. People have reached out when something I've done has touched them in some way, and that's what I value the most. It's pretty amazing. I still get tagged by young kids who have seen that video a year or two later, and have redrawn, and they'll say like drew Miles Morales or drew Deadpool based on Mike's video, and that's a cool thing to see. And maybe that kid will grow up and be on here drawing comics and talking to people and getting to do cool stuff, and it'll be some based on some goofy thing I did for them 10, 15 years ago or something. So it's not a bad way to make a living. You can do it.
No, not at all. I mean, you're a rock star to so many people. That's I mean, not many people can say that they've reached that level. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it really is. And again, you've done more because of the extra outreach. But that's I don't know.
I appreciate that. I always get very uncomfortable when people compliment me. So I'm going to try really hard not to argue with you in front of all these nice people. I don't feel like much of a rock star, but I am very fortunate for sure. And I've gotten to work on when I was a little kid and I sat down and wrote down a bucket list of all the stuff I'd want to draw. I've been lucky in that I've hit them all pretty much, except the X-Men. Damn it. Yeah,
well, X-Men would have been on. I would have been buying a lot of your art. I'm an X-Men and a Thor guy, so I'm
right on
Marvel. Yeah,
I got to do a Thor short with Simonson of all people.
Really?
Which was it was just one story. My schedule was really, really tight, and then Sal Buscema inked me, which I was like beside myself. He actually, so I had to mail him the actual art, and he inked it and sent it back. And the stuff he's in his 80s, but the guy still got it. He's amazing. He wrote me this really sweet note. It's probably been a highlight of my career. I'm hoping that I'll never get desperate enough to have to sell these pages, because it's a thing of beauty to see. I mean, I cannot understand how I managed to get to a point in my life where I got to draw a page or a comic with Sal Buscema. It's been incredible, dude. It's been I'm talking like I'm dying tomorrow. Sorry. It's still incredible. It's still really great.
You answered one of my questions. Was, what are some of the highlights as far as other creators that you've gotten to work with? So Simonson and Sal Buscema I'm just the right age where I've gotten to work with a lot of heroes. I mean, and in ways that I'm like can't quite understand. Like I got to draw Conan for a year, and with Roy Thomas writing, which was just and I got to draw some G.I. Joe with Larry Hama. I got to know him pretty good. He didn't like me at first because I was an idiot and I made a stupid joke. He had sent me a script and I thought I would be funny, and I sent back the dialogue from Roadblock and I added a line so he was rhyming. And I said, Larry, I think you meant to write this. And Larry didn't think it was funny. But once I got over being an idiot, like Larry's an incredibly sweet guy, and his history is amazing. He's worked with like Wally Wood and just so I've been very lucky in that I can kind of bridge the gap between having worked with incredible artists and writers from previous generations and then newer ones. And I don't know how I got here, man. I got very lucky. So you don't. So that was like a rookie mistake with Mr. Hama.
I wasn't even a rookie. I was just stupid. I thought it was funny. I thought it's Roadblock, right? Like
right. I get it.
I saw an opportunity and I went for it, and it was a call. But I probably would do it again. I mean, it worked out for the best. He when I had to leave the book, he told me he'd miss me on it, which I took as a huge compliment. Like. He's a great guy. So
So you were exclusive to Marvel for a while, and now you're working on DC. I mean, what made you go to DC at a time when, DC seems to have, some, I wouldn't say they're in turmoil or anything, but there's, there seems to be a lot of apprehension going, in the DC offices there since the start of the year, I think. So, but you made that, you decided to make a move.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm not picking up on any turmoil, but what do I know? I'm in the
It's all, you know what I mean? Just the stuff you read in the, read online. I guess you can't trust everything.
I think a lot of that's right. I think a lot of that stuff is sort of like, armchair quarterbacking and people reading between the lines. I'm sure every business in the world is in free fall and trying to figure out what the hell's happening next. But I'm not picking up on that. And I left because it was just a weird. Again, it sort of comes back to my amazing luck where my contract at Marvel was ending, and I had worked at DC, but primarily at Vertigo many years ago, drawing a Swamp Thing related book called The Unmen and Exterminators and a bunch of us. I even got to work
Queen
with
and Country too, I think, right?
Oh, Queen and Country was at Oni. Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Which is another high point. That was really cool, though I rushed all that art, so that was probably not wise. But I had worked for them briefly, but most of my career has been at Marvel since like 2005. And one of the characters on that bucket list I mentioned earlier was Wonder Woman, and I just literally got offered a Wonder Woman book, a new one, which is like the sweet spot for me because I was going to be able to make it my own, right as my contract was ending. And it was a tough call, frankly. I was leaving Daredevil with Chip, which was I was in love with, but I knew this was like this was just one of those opportunities that there's no way I could say no to. So as soon as my contract was lapsed, I took the Wonder Woman gig and turned in my notice on Daredevil, and it was a drag. Chip's amazing. Daredevil's obviously an iconic character. I'd love to have stayed longer, but it just felt right, and I'm glad I did it. It worked out beautifully, and now I'm doing a new book at DC, which unfortunately I can't share what it is, but it's a big one, and it's exciting. Yeah,
cool,
very cool.
So would Daredevil have been something that you could have stayed on longer if the Wonder Woman, kind of like because you were on Deadpool for years?
Yeah. Matter of fact, you mentioned Oming. Many years ago, Mike, and I don't even know if you're still on there and remember any of this, but I bounced around. I had like a rule where I wouldn't stay on a book for more than like 12 issues, just because I would get bored. And Mike says, like, stop being an idiot and stay on a book longer. It'll give people a chance to get to know you, and you'll be able to say, Mike Hawthorne, artist of whatever. And so I took his advice, and when Deadpool came around, I actually turned Deadpool down at first because it doesn't matter. But once they told me more about the book and I jumped on, I thought, okay, this is the one. So I stuck around. Hey, there you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, if any of you liked what I did on Deadpool, you can thank Mike for it because he gave me the advice to stay on, and I did. And accidentally broke the record for the most amount of Deadpool drawn, which was mind-boggling. I was on the book for about 5.5 years, and that was a beautiful thing. Like getting to keep a team together like that and have a nice long run. It was the kind of thing that I didn't realize I wanted to do until I was sort of in the thick of it. And while we were on it, it was sort of like in sports when a team starts winning and other teams immediately start trying to pick the team apart. So I started getting offered like Superman and a Green Lantern book and a bunch of stuff that a Commandi book that I had to like broke my heart to turn down. But I wanted to stay put, and it worked out for the best. And Daredevil, to get back to your question, felt like that. It felt like very natural. It felt like the team. We didn't. You can kind of tell when everybody's just clicking and everything's working just right, and all the editors are get what you're doing. And Daredevil was like that. Chip is an amazing collaborator. It just wasn't. It was the right book and the right people, just not the right time. I needed to take that Wonder Woman book, and I'm glad I did. Stephanie's an incredible person. We've gotten to be friends. We're planning on hopefully doing a create our own book together, and
Oh wow.
it was the right thing. And I'd wanted to do this Wonder Woman book for years. My wife's family's from Greece. She's from Greece. And we spent a summer there many, many years ago. And I'm at the Acropolis, and I'm looking at these, classic Roman nosed sculptures. And then I'm getting onto the subway to go back to her mother's house. And there's a guy sitting there that looks exactly like the sculpture. And I'm like, Jesus, you guys have looked like that for thousands of years.
Right.
And I just thought, if I ever do a Wonder Woman, I'm going to make her look like that. And I know it's going to piss off lots of people that don't get it and want her to look like a spokesmodel. But I just felt very strongly, like I was ready to turn down this book if they didn't let me make her look this way. And luckily the team and Stephanie, everybody was ready to let me do this thing. And so I know lots of people made fun of her nose and how she looked, but there's a reason for it. Go look at ancient Greek pottery, go look at ancient Greek sculptures, and hopefully you'll understand why she looks that way.
No, I saw nothing wrong with that. I totally got where you come from. I was, well, I don't look Greek. My mom's side of the family came over on the boat. So, so
you speak any? Do you speak any Greek?
No, I don't. Stavrakis was my mom's maiden name.
Wow, so. That's like the ultra Greek name. Yeah.
Exactly. So, so yes, I totally get that.
Yeah, man.
Nope,
it's
I wish
I don't. I hardly. That's all I got. I took it for a year, just so I know enough to, like, when they're talking shit about me, I can know. And then I dumped it. So yeah, but that's cool, man. I'll tell my wife.
Very, very cool. Well, it's I can see why you were turned on by it. So did you have to do the drawings and whatnot ahead of time before, so that they could see what your direction was and how your input was before you kind of committed 100% to it?
Yeah, in fact, I did a lot of developmental sketches, but I already had a bunch. I mean, I had finished drawings that I had done post and during that trip in Greece, that I could show them and say, hey, this is what I want her to look like. So it wasn't a hard sell because I had already sort of in my head prepared for it and had a bunch of art. Like on day one, I could just say, here, okay, offers in, here's how I want her to look. And it worked out beautifully. I mean, and I tend to do a lot because I draw so much and I have a lot of, usually about a dozen sketchbooks going at once. It's just a matter of like digging out the right one from the right time period and going, here, this is what I want it to look like. So, yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, congratulations on getting, you're got another check on the bucket list, right? So what, I mean, out of curiosity, what else is on the bucket list, character-wise or title-wise? Other than, well, you said X-Men, but are there any other titles out there or characters you want to work with?
It's funny because I think X-Men was one I wrote when I wrote on my list when I was a kid, and now I'm not so sure I would be. I realize now that I have the X-Men I grew up with in my head, and that if I was given a new team, I don't know that I would be as into it. But I mean, I think all of us have a Batman book in our back pocket that we'd like to draw. But there's not a whole lot beyond that, other than some creator-owned stuff. There is a part of me that thinks I have a Hellboy story in me, and maybe another Superman. Although I got to work on Superman, I did a little bit on Action Comics and an event thing. But drawing Superman in Wonder Woman. And I altered how I would draw him too, because I made him a little smaller than I would have normally, because I wanted him. I didn't want like an ultra muscular guy. I wanted him to look more like a farm boy, and I wanted Wonder Woman or Diana to look like she's never done anything but wanted to like fight and kill people. So I wanted to contrast how they look together. But drawing them together made me realize, like, wait a minute, I really do think I have more Superman stories to tell. So although technically he's been checked off, maybe Superman too.
All right. So, well, I guess I can see that. I'm not a big reader of X-Men these days. The X-Men I grew up on were, Cochran, Paul Smith, John Byrne, and a little bit of John Romita Jr., I guess, that kind of period. But yeah, the X-Men certainly aren't the X-Men of old anymore.
And I'm sure it would still be fun.
Probably still great, but yeah.
Yeah. and it's weird because Jerry's on it, which is I worked with Jerry for years on Deadpool,
Mm-hmm.
and you would think. I remember when we were leaving Deadpool, and we thought, well, we should do Spider-Man. It just makes sense. Like we should try to see if we could stick together and do Spider-Man. And Marvel was like, yeah, Mike, you do Spider-Man. And then they put Jerry on, a bunch of stuff leading up to X-Men. I just thought like it would have been nice to, keep doing stuff with him. But I'm sure he's doing amazing, amazing work. I mean, I haven't been following it as much as I should. I don't read as many comics as I should. I think it's a little like I used to work at a restaurant. And anybody that's ever worked in a restaurant knows like you cook all day and then you go home and you make like a salami sandwich because the last thing you want to do is cook. So, but yeah, I don't know. What was the question? Did I go?
I don't even know anymore.
I drifted off, man. I'm sorry.
I get that. I was talking with a guy who works in the field, and I was interviewing them, and I said, "Are you familiar with the interviews I do?" And he said, and he's like, "I hate to tell you, Bill, I don't watch them. I'm working in comics all day. When I go home, the last thing I want to do is turn on YouTube or Facebook and watch somebody talking to me about comic books."
It's true. I'm sorry, Bill. It's absolutely true. Man. Yeah. Oh man, that's terrible. I'm so sorry. But and some folks will get actually mad at me because I don't keep up with popular culture and comics, and like I've never seen a Daredevil show where it pissed somebody off when I admitted that.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get pissed off too. That's one of the the Netflix series. Daredevil was the best.
I almost made a joke online. I was gonna say I've never seen a Daredevil show. Do I need to see that before watching She-Hulk? And then I thought if I say this, everyone's gonna get mad at me. So yeah, I just and some of that is when you're freelancing, you're working so much, and obviously I'm a little overboard with it. So you're working so much that you don't get to sort of you feel like time's kind of passing you by a little bit. I don't get to see I blinked and like 20 years worth of TV shows have gone past that I've never gotten to see that I would have I've never seen The Sopranos. I've never seen Breaking Bad.
I was just going to say Breaking Bad, right? You haven't seen that one either. Boy, you have missed out on a lot, Mike.
I have. It's terrible.
Yeah. And those are ones you can't like listen to. You really have to sit down and pay attention. Unfortunately, I've thought about that too, because I sit in front of my computer all day, but when I try to watch a show, I've got an ultra wide monitor, right? So at some points in the day, I'll put the news on or I'll try to watch a show. But if I can't devote myself to it, I'll never. I don't want to watch She-Hulk because I'm gonna watch it all at once because that's the only way I can watch a show is if I can watch it from beginning to end. Gotcha. I can't do a weekly thing.
Yeah. Well, I get that, and it sucks because you end up missing a part of the culture that everybody's sort of into, and that you. I would love to have like I remember when The Wire was out, and we lived near Baltimore, and I wanted to watch it desperately, and it was at a really busy point in my career, and there was just no way, and it was frustrating because I mean, as a freelancer, it's kind of hard to explain to some folks, but your job is done when it's done, not when it's 5 o'clock, and in comics, it's so work intensive that can, you can have days that stretch out. I handed in yesterday's page at like 10 o'clock at night, just having picked away at it all day. So it is kind of a bummer, but I remind myself that I'm also getting to make things for a living, so I can't complain too much. Hopefully I don't I always get the feeling, I don't know if you remember, there was like a Gilligan's Island reunion show. And it was like them after they'd been saved.
Yeah.
And they're all back in the mainland. And the professor is like, he's still brilliant, but he's like inventing all this stuff that's already been invented, but he didn't know because he's been on this island. So he's like inventing like the hula hoop and the frisbee and stuff like that. And I feel a little like him sometimes. Like I'll go, oh man, it'd be great if there was, I should do a comic about a guy who gets cancer and then wants to become a drug dealer. And everybody's like, dude, what? So I feel a little out of time sometimes. So
Right. That's hilarious. Yeah. Ken Carter, collector, he makes a good point. While you are missing culture, you are creating culture. So there's that going for you, which is very, very true.
Yeah, so I try not to complain too much about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of Gilligan's Island too. By the way,
Me too, man. I
we've
love it.
done we've done some skits. You know, that one show that we have where we sell art every week. We
Yeah.
have a skit where I'm Billigan, and I'm, wait, here, watch.
Oh man, if you have the hat, I'm gonna fall over my chair. Oh my God, you have it. Wait, you know what?
You're not gonna tell me you've got. Well, I'm not gonna keep this on. I look pretty foolish.
Wait. I swear to God, we didn't plan this. I just happen to have one.
Who would have guessed? If you had a skipper hat, I was gonna fall over.
That would have been hysterical. And I got this from my close friend Jamar Nicholas, who just sent it to me. He's known for his fisherman hat. He's an incredible cartoonist. If you don't know his work, you should find out because he's huge.
What was the name?
Jamar Nicholas. He's got a book. It's coming. I'm sure he's gonna have a show before too long.
Okay.
He's got a book with Scholastics called The Extraordinary Leon. He also self-published a book. He's an incredible human being. He's also a Philly native, and he sent me the hat just this week. Actually, I wonder if I have his book here. But
well, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Scholastic, yeah, they've done as far as publishing and everything, it's awesome to have them around. I mean, they've done a lot of great things and gotten a lot of creators' work and put out such great material. So that's pretty cool that he's working.
Yeah, and in some ways they're like the beginning of the pipeline, right? Like they're getting kids to read comics early, and then we get our grubby hands on them when they're teenagers. That sounds terrible. Wait. We get to create comics for them as they get older. Sorry.
You got to break them in somewhere, and Scholastics, does a good job of that.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, I mean, I wouldn't complain about that. So
yeah, I think they're getting to be like the finding comics at the drugstore when you were a kid. Oh look, Jamal, that's another close friend of mine. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so it's going to be available in a few short weeks, October 4th.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, man. Our goal is to have I say our goal, like I'm just an early investor in the book, but I have no part in it. But I told Jamar his goal is to get a Leon float in the Thanksgiving Day parade, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. Yeah, so that
would be a highlight of probably anybody's career, right?
That's it. And I'm going to be at the bottom holding one of the ropes, wearing my hat like this. Yeah.
Oh, I'm super curious now about that book.
It's awesome.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah. He's been doing it for years. He's an incredible cartoonist. He's been in the industry for a long time, but this is the big one. So Scholastic's deal is a huge deal. So very proud of him.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's funny. Samuel Rojas mentions that the Scholastic book fairs were a highlight of the school year. I forgot all about those. That's so true. Scholastic really, I mean, there you go. They've been influential for ages.
Yes. I mean, hell, we have kids about the same age. I'm sure you remember the old pamphlets that they'd send home with the school.
Yeah.
Like it's a big deal, man. I wish Marvel could get into that thing, or DC. Like it seems so last century, but it's such a big deal. These kids would get these little paper handouts and circle which books they were into. It was awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And Robert Deans is mentioning on your Patreon that you do a podcast with Jamar. I
do. I didn't want to plug too much of my stuff on here and overdo it, but yeah, we talk every 2 weeks and just answer questions about the industry and the business and the making of comics. And since we have sort of between our experiences, I'm sort of in the ghetto mainstream of Marvel, DC, and he's in the actual mainstream where they serve hors d'oeuvres and drinks of the bookstore market. We sort of have a wide range of knowledge, and it comes in handy when folks are asking us questions. So we started recording it on our podcast. So we do that. Cool. He says fortnightly, which means every 2 weeks apparently. Has nothing to do with a video game.
I listened to one earlier. It was like you had it on YouTube, so that's where I caught it. I didn't realize it came from the Patreon, but it's good to know. And just so everybody knows, in the description of the show, I did link to your YouTube, the Patreon,
thank you,
your web store, Cadence, where you can buy artwork direct, and I think I threw an Amazon link in there for the Happiness Will Follow.
Oh, well, thank you, man. But that's awesome. Maybe you know what? We'll make rent this month. That's awesome.
Yeah, I understand. And like I said, I've been self-employed for 20 years. I know
Yeah,
how,
man.
work stops when I'm never done. Every day
Yeah.
I've got a checklist of, you were on my checklist earlier, but I scratch you off yet. No, I haven't scratched you off the list yet, but I
Yeah.
scratched off everybody else on there. You're the last one. But
Yeah.
I know that's how it goes when you got to do it. So you said you turned in a page the other day at 10 o'clock. I mean, what's your usual time frame you spend on any page that you're working on typically?
I try to shoot for a page a day.
Yeah.
My work can get a little involved, so there are times when that goes over. But if you can't do a page a day, you probably can't do a monthly book. So
Right.
it's just a simple rule that however involved the page is going to be, I know I have to try to have it wrapped up by the end of the day. That goes up for double page spreads. For some reason, you would think a double page spread is 2 pages, therefore it's 2 days. For whatever reason, it always takes me 3. I don't know what the hell the problem
You're
is.
overthinking.
Yeah, probably.
The bigger the canvas, the more thought you have to put into it.
Yeah. Maybe that's it, man. It's just so. But yeah, I think it's you kind of have to. I mean, I know that there are some big name guys I've heard of that can do 2 pages a week, which is incredible. If I couldn't live off of 2 pages a week, but maybe my rate's probably too low. I don't know, but yeah, I tried. I one a day.
Yeah.
That's pencils, by the way, pencils or inks, not both.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably clarify that because nowadays a lot of dudes are sort of doing loosey goosey pencils and then digitally inking it, which can speed things along significantly.
But you do tight pencils, right? I mean,
Yeah, I do pretty tight pencils. Yeah.
Let's see. There was a question earlier from Greg about your experience at Comic
Oh
Twart.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Comic Twart was awesome. Comic Twart, it's a terrible name. I'm sorry. It sounds like an English.
I had a hard time saying it there, but
it's a combination of Twitter and art. It started on Twitter. So it was a group of these guys that were they would pick a character and they'd say, hey, we should all draw this character. And I think it started for I think there's 1 or 2 characters before I was asked to join.
Mm-hmm.
And they made it official and started a website. And I jumped in because I thought these guys are all amazing. And metal sharpens metal. So maybe I'll get a little better.
Sure.
Because I also, it forced me, it was like an exercise routine. It forced me to draw characters that, in some cases, I'd never even heard of before. And try to come up with something every week on a deadline. So we were all working artists, so it was a little tight sometimes, and you might, have to skip a week or 2. But it was incredible, man. Those guys were it was just for me, it was a huge growing and learning experience getting to I tried, I didn't want it to be a competitive thing. I really just wanted to see what were they doing and what could I learn from them and then push myself to try to do something that was worthy of being with all these other amazing guys. And I mean, all the names involved are all like superstars, man. I mean, it's Mitch Gerads and Chris Somney and Ron Salas and Dave Johnson joined on the second year. Yeah. It's just incredible. It's just everybody on there is incredible. If the site's still live, our friend Nathan Fairbairn, who's the colorist on the, I say that in quotations because the guy can draw his ass off too, but I think he's hosting the site still. If it's not Nate, I'm sorry. But the site's still live. You can go look at it, and basically it's just every week we had a new character or characters, and everybody drew the same one and did different renditions of it. Sometimes we do Comic Twart takes over Marvel, and then you could choose any Marvel character you wanted. I did the X-Men for that week, or we take over DC, and I did a bunch of whatever, Batman and other fun stuff. So it's awesome, man. It was a great experience. I didn't realize how popular it was, frankly, right out the gate, because I didn't really track the numbers, and it wasn't until quite far into it that I realized wow, a lot of people are paying attention to this thing. and when we don't post, people are like, okay, where is it? Where is it? So it was a cool thing. I think if I had the chance to do it again, I'd love to, man. If we weren't all so busy, it'd be great to have a reunion and do it again. It'd be awesome.
Well, it sounds like it was a good challenge for you in its own way, and
For
almost like
me,
going
yeah.
back to school, right? You're forcing yourself to, do something that you wouldn't normally do
Right, right.
with peers as well. I mean, which is even more give you a little more anxiety maybe than
Yeah.
you're doing a regular job, right?
Right, exactly. Who wants to fumble the ball when you're on there with like Declan Shalvey and like Francesco and like you just who wants to be the weak link on that week? You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, for sure. I was like, oh shit, I gotta come up with something cool this week. And yeah, it was fun, man. And like I said, there were a lot of times when there were characters like frankly never even heard of. So it forced me way outside of my comfort zone. And you got a lot of good art out of it. It was cool. I didn't realize also like a dummy. I was sitting on all this art and like I didn't realize the guys were making money from it, like selling the artwork. So like an idiot, I was just like,
Just putting it in the drawer.
I was just doing it for fun. I didn't realize like because I hadn't been a big like I didn't done a lot of commissions and things like that. I didn't do
Yeah.
shows. So it probably was a good year into it when I realized, oh wait, these guys are selling me. So that's why they can justify the time. I always felt like I'm an insane person. Why am I doing this to myself? I'm busy
Hmm.
as hell. I have no time for this thing. I could have probably taken a day off of my regular work and just dedicated to the comic toy thing if I knew they were making money at it. But I'm not the brightest guy in the world, Bill.
There wasn't well, they didn't have a guide for you when you started that
They
said this
did
is
it.
what we're going to do, and if you'd like to do it too, you might be wise in trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about it.
Oh well, now everybody knows. But so the cool thing for in hearing that, and I'm not familiar with it. I haven't seen it, so I have to go look it up. But I've been reading a lot as well. It's kind of back to how things have changed and where things are at today. A lot of people are like dumping their regular TV because there's so much unique programming that is done regularly, right,
Yeah,
online, something like that. Like what we do here, like what a lot of people are doing, such
yeah,
that that's replacing their regular watching, something on a Wednesday night at 9 p.m. or something.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's cool because, and I've read it like it's all ages too. I mean, people, kids have been doing it all the time, but I'm reading a few articles the last week about guys in their 60s or gals in their 60s that are just turning to YouTube and Facebook
yeah,
because they just like the programming that ordinary people are putting on,
yeah,
like
yeah,
we're doing
yeah,
here. I think that's amazing. I mean, it's like
yeah,
it's kind of like a revolution. It's like we're going back to probably the old days of broadcasting where you can just kind of try things, experiment, and see what works. But
yeah,
we have
yeah.
these great platforms now. So
Yeah, to me,
cool.
it's a little like I said, I put out these quarterly zines, like art zines, and like that's what this feels like, right? Because
Mhm.
like I could just do polished comics, but there's something freeing about a less structured, fun like this format where we can throw this on YouTube and just hang out and talk, and there's not. I mean, we do that here, frankly. Like my son and I, we have Disney Plus and HBO Max and all this stuff, and
Sure.
inevitably he just ends up on YouTube watching like Fail Army or something,
Yes.
or some stream thing. So yeah, I think it's kind of cool for sure. I mean, I should probably save some money and cut off all the other stuff, but
Well, I keep those too. I mean,
yeah,
I have to have
yeah,
them, but I actually don't have a regular Spectrum TV package or anything like
right,
that. So I
right,
have to I stream most of the live stuff. I have, but anyway, I
yeah,
digress. Hey, before we get to the sale, one thing I wanted to ask you was, you seem to you can kind of tweak your style as an artist based on the project, and especially with like Happiness Will Follow had a particular style. I mean, how do you see yourself as an artist? You seem to be very flexible and based on what the because I guess Hysteria was kind of the same way, a very
yeah,
different approach to your normal comic style.
right, right,
I don't know if a lot of artists do that. I mean, but you seem to have
yeah.
very flexible that way.
Yeah, I mean, early on in my career, I actually avoided superhero comics for about 10 years because I really wanted to do a bunch of genre work. And
Hmm.
I also told myself that, if I was a filmmaker, I wouldn't shoot a war film the same way I'd shoot a romantic comedy. So why would I draw them all the same? So I would change my style dramatically from one book to the next, which frankly was not great for my career because editors quite literally didn't know what to expect from me. I
Hmm.
would get my very first Marvel gig. The editor said to me, "Okay, we love your work, but we can't, like, which version are we going to get?" So um, I realized I needed to have a very like concrete mainstream style
Sure.
that I've sort of like tightened up and said, okay, this is what you if you hire me, this is what you'll get, and then tweak it for anything else that didn't fall within those parameters after having bounced around with styles. But for me, it just makes sense. I was never I never saw myself as like the star of the show in the way that like guys like Jim Lee and McFarlane were. Like you showed up because those guys were putting asses in seats, so to speak, right? So
Hmm.
you showed up because you were like, whoa, I want to see how Jim draws Batman. Um, with me, I was trying to tweak how I drew things to match the script. I mean, frankly, like even going back to Wonder Woman, if I got asked to draw the regular monthly Wonder Woman comic, even that would probably look different than the one I did for Evolution, because if the story doesn't suit that version of Wonder Woman, I'd probably tweak her. So I try hard to be as respectful of the writer's intentions as possible, and bend the style a little bit to fit what the story needs to be told. And that's not always great because people don't always want that. They want kind of a tried and true, you know, kind of old school comic artists. You always know what their stuff is going to look like, and I appreciate that also.
Hmm.
But I think that probably as a storyteller, it's more interesting to me to have it look a little different, and play with that style so that each one feels unique, not because I drew it, but because of the way the story was told. I don't even know if that makes any sense, to be honest.
No, it does. I mean, I
Okay.
mean, you're trying to adapt to the way the story's being written, or and
Yeah.
I think that's cool. But I get where you're saying, where you're also saying that you had to have that defined style that was going to be your baseline for doing work for the major publishers, because
Right.
without it, yeah, that's yeah, that probably I
Yeah.
can see why they were a little apprehensive maybe on some of the projects they wanted to hire you
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, because you have to look at these things as every time you get hired for a book, you're being trusted with money, right? Like every book has a budget. They have to invest in each book, and if the book is a dud, then they have to explain to their boss why the book you just blew however much money out the window. Um, I almost said out your ass, but I didn't want to curse on this thing. Sorry. Uh, so I try to be as like respectful to that as possible. Although I want desperately to make the story stand out and be special and not have to worry about all that stuff. But I realize, like, okay, every time I'm taking one of these gigs, this person's terrified that I'm going to get them fired. So I need to have something where they can like predictably go, this is what it's going to look like. And here's the last book. See, it's going to look like this. It's cool. Don't worry. So, and that's where that sort of stock, like superhero style came from that you see in Deadpool and Spider-Man and all that stuff, which I
Sure.
love. I try to make it unique to me. I don't want it to sound hacky. I guess what I'm just saying is that I realized I had to have the sort of, the mainstream version, like that clients can see and expect, and with the knowledge that um, if I want to tweak it, I'm going to explain why, and I'm like the Wonder Woman thing. I'm going to give you examples of why it might look this way.
Hmm.
So yeah.
No, that's a good answer. I had no
Okay.
idea what to expect. So,
Okay.
but it all makes sense. And
Yeah.
I just realized something else. You are the first person I've interviewed that also has a gumball machine in in their back wall.
Oh,
Because
there it is.
I've got one right there.
Oh, right
You have
on,
so
man.
much in common, Mike.
That's crazy. This thing, what's going on? Yeah, we used to
If
keep
you've got a
gumballs
Thor
in it.
costume hanging someplace nearby, we've really,
I
we should
really
end the
don't.
break.
I'm sorry. I dropped the hammer on that one. No, we used to keep actual gumballs in it when the kids were little, and you could actually put regular coins and get gumballs out of it. Yeah, it's fun stuff. Yeah, yeah, it works.
Yes. No, no, mine is too. Mine's a Marvel. Like I got it off eBay a long time ago. It has
Oh,
like
cool.
Marvel necklaces and rings in it.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome, man.
it's it's my I saw it and I had to have it. So, oh man, but so hey, let's go through let's show off the art. We can talk. Well,
Oh, okay.
obviously, there's plenty to talk about while we're looking at the art too.
All right.
But let me go ahead and remind everybody kind of the ground rules for how we're going to do this today. There are 25 pieces of art, not 28. I was saying I just miscounted. There's actually 28 pieces of art in this, but there's 25 lots because there's a pencil and an ink version on a couple pieces. So that was just me being, not counting properly. But to claim the artwork today that we show, you're going to type the word claim and the lot number in the chat, and just wait till the end of the show, because if you've claimed one or more artworks, what we're going to have you do is email andrew@cadencecomicart.com, and when you do that at the end of the show, let him know what lots you've purchased, and also he's going to need to know your mailing address. And please include your YouTube or Facebook handle in that email as well, since the spreadsheet I send them after the show will help them line everything up. And we mentioned already, as far as the payment options, PayPal invoices are typically the way Cadence likes to handle it, but they can do Zelle and Venmo and money orders as well. You just got to work that out with them to get the mailing addresses and information to do bank transfers if that's the way you want to go. And shipping is not included on the artwork that you see, though I'm sure they combine on shipping. That was one question I didn't ask Andrew before we started, but I'm certain that is the case. And so those are the shipping rates for US or international. And I left the N out of international, didn't I? I can see that now. I saw somebody type something in the chat. The other day, I think even when I was on with Mike, I'm like, I have like misspelled something in every single thing I've done, whether it's a mailing or a slide, and it's approaching 2 weeks now, and it's killing me. I've really got to have a proofreader. So
you went to art school, Bill. It's okay, man. Don't worry. None of us can spell.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So as long as there's no, anybody has any questions, that's, we're just going to kind of roll into there, and we'll talk about, because we're pretty much going to start with the work that's from Marvel, and then finish with some Wonder Woman Evolution pieces. Awesome. So I think it's like 19 on Marvel, 6 maybe on Wonder Woman. So that's kind of the order of things here, and nothing's priced high to low. It's more just kind of grouped by the title of the book and everything. So just remember, claim in the chat, and put the lot number there with it. So we'll go ahead and just start showing some artwork, and we'll talk about them, because we're going to start off with some amazing Spider-Man art from issue 795. So this is the first lot 1, and it's priced at $300 on 11 by 17. So, Mike, I mean, tell me a little bit about this. And it's a pencil-only piece. So was this inked on another board, digitally inked? Tell me a bit about that.
It was inked on. So most of the time with these monthly books, you're working with someone. They can be on the other side of the country or the other side of the world. So it's just easier for me to send scans that the inker can then print out on blue lines and ink. So the one book that didn't happen with was with Superior Spider-Man. So I believe all that stuff is actually in boards, but this one for Amazing, this might actually be my very first Amazing Spider-Man page.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny because we wanted to do a gag where he keeps that vest on because he's cold. So I purposely, instead of having a jacket on him, I have a vest so that he can wear it while he's Spidey. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. But I imagine you had to do a lot of, but even when you're preparing for Spider-Man, did you do a lot of character design stuff that, you let them know this is the approach you're taking on the character?
I did. Especially with Spider-Man, I had just come off of Deadpool where we're doing a lot of this like expressive stuff with the mask. So I wanted it to look like you saw the guy underneath the mask, and so I didn't do I would try to design them together so that I could show them what the head would look like and what the actual Spider-Man, so Peter Parker Spider-Man together. I think if I remember correctly, I ended up sending them designs, even showing how the height difference would be between him and other characters, just so that you got a sense of scale. I really wanted him to feel like a smaller guy. And with this one in particular, I remember I wanted to give him big eyebrows just because I always felt like that would be the big eyebrows on his actual face would be like a stand-in for the expressive eyes when he's wearing the mask. So I
Ah,
wanted, yeah, I wanted something like big on his face that was like the big spider eyes when he's not wearing it. You know, does that make any sense?
it does, but I mean, it's back to now I know why you have a hard time with DPSs because you're putting so much thought into the character. But I mean, I get it. That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah,
it really does. But I would never, that's something that I wouldn't think as a comic reader or somebody who appreciates comic art like I do
yeah,
and everybody in the audience that's in your thought process. That you're thinking about keeping Peter as expressive as without the mask as with it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and later when I ended up going to Superior Spider-Man, I did another one of those comparisons because I wanted to show them, for instance, that he's supposed to kind of look like Peter, so he's got the big eyebrows, but he carries himself differently because he's an older guy. So when he's wearing his mask, he's like squinting all the time, which I thought was funny for the fact that he's a grumpy old guy, but also he's Doc Ock and he's used to wearing glasses. And I wear
Right.
glasses, you wear glasses. If you take them off, you get in the habit of squinting. And even if he fixed his eyesight, presumably as a clone, he probably is in a habit of just squinting all the time and looking pissed off.
Sure, of
So
course.
I try to like plan it out so that, I knew we were going from amazing to superior, and I wanted to make it look like these characters make sense in or out of uniform. And even if I switched off their Spider-Man outfits, you would still know, oh, that's Peter under that suit versus
Sure.
Otto and that kind of thing. So you're right. I probably overdo it, and no one knows it. And you end up doing all this stuff, and you're like, who cares? No one's gonna care. Just draw Spider-Man, you
It
idiot.
was important to you, though. I mean, but it makes
Yeah,
but again, that's cool because you never know. I mean, are you just sitting down to pound out the page, or are you actually really being thoughtful about it? And
I
it sounds
try.
like
I genuinely try. Yeah.
all right. Well, that first lot didn't sell, so we're just going to keep rolling through it, and I'll recap anything that doesn't sell, of course, at the end, like I always do.
Yeah.
And here, well, let's go ahead and look at lot two because here's another page from the
Oh
same
man,
book. This looks like it was totally fun to draw. I
it
mean,
was. It was.
Loki.
Yeah. It was, and it's weird because you mentioned Hysteria earlier, where there was I had there's killer bees in the story, and they just are growing enormous, and so in that comic they have to sort of fight this thing that's a gigantic killer bee, and I got to sort of revisit that here with Spider-Man, which is a cool way of sort of getting to revisit an old idea, and it was a lot of fun for sure. And Loki was one of those characters that I hadn't spent a lot of time with, and we were getting this newer version with the long hair and everything, and it was a cool way to like you got these Ditko characters together in this same comic, and it just felt like it scratched a cool itch that I didn't realize I had at the time.
Yeah, and Alberto, yes, that is Loki in the
Yeah, yeah.
center lower panel as well.
And in this case, he's the Sorcerer Supreme, and he's wearing, I don't know if you can tell, but the cape has been ripped up, so it's actually sewn together again. So there's all these stitches, kind of has this Frankenstein vibe to it. I
I was
should point
thinking
out
of,
too.
okay, yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say I was thinking of grabbing a copy of the published page. I probably should have because I was looking at it earlier, and yeah, that's
Well,
on me.
I was gonna point out the reason he's fighting these bees is that there's this. He's in kind of classic Spidey, a classic Spidey manner. Like he goes to see Loki about something and accidentally hits this jar that releases this kind of bee spirit thing. So it's like it didn't have to happen, except for Peter's just a knucklehead. But and another thing I'm noticing with the page is like because they're pencils, you're getting to see a lot of my construction work that goes on behind it. So I will often do. I picked this up from an animator friend. I'll do the underdrawing in red, so you'll see a lot of this kind of a red tint to the figures, or you'll see perspective marks like measurements throughout the page that are all done in red, and then I will tighten it up in graphite so that when I scan that in Photoshop, you can essentially, I mean, it's a little complicated, but you can essentially turn off the red, save it as a grayscale file, and send that to the inker, so you have this kind of immaculate pencil drawing. Um, but you'll notice there's lots of little red ticks and lines and stuff. That's just me working out the perspective by hand on the page.
Oh, that makes sense. I was going to ask you why you chose red, since obviously a lot of artists will use blue, but red's just that's what you prefer.
Yeah, well, you can do blue. The truth is that blue you only use because it doesn't really make sense in the sense of with a pencil page. Like blue is for when you ink something and then you're going to photocopy it or scan it and essentially just scan the black part.
Mm-hmm.
With the pencils, it's just easier to you could use any basic color and then sort of turn off that color and there's a thing called channels and you can just turn off
Oh
the
yeah,
red, turn off the blue.
I'm a Photoshop guy.
Yeah, so you know the deal. And it just makes it easier. So it doesn't matter whether it's red or blue. It's just kind of a mood thing. Some pages will be all blue, some will not. So, yeah.
All right. Well, this one's out there as well. I'm just going to go on it because we've got a few
Yeah,
other
yeah.
pages from the same book. Let's see. Lot number 3 is page 15 from it. I mean, like that first panel is
incredible. I got to do a montage. That was fun, man. Yeah, instead of I think it was written with. I can't remember if it was written with individual panels, and I got to do this, and they were cool about it or not. But generally, if you want to try something like this, writers and editors are very cool and open to it and receptive as long as you can kind of pull it off. And I got lucky. It turned out okay. This was one of those pages. Actually, now that I think of it, Andrew, did I mean to send this to you? Page? I feel like I might have wanted to keep this one.
Well, no one claimed it yet, so you may still you get to keep it. But yeah, I was blown away by that first panel though, because I talk a lot about page layout on my Thursday show, and I really always gravitate to unique panel layouts, especially ones that don't rely on panels to convey an action sequence like this. So yeah, this one's gorgeous.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And if we talk a lot in comics about the Z panel, or rather the Z pattern of reading, right? Where you come in from the left, go across the page, and then go down at an angle, and then go across the page again. If you look at this, you can kind of imagine a Z there coming across, from the top left-hand corner.
Oh yeah.
Straight across to the B on the far right, and then down Spidey's head to his leg, and then across again, across that like little Spidey kicking the other B on the side. So it's probably a little more obvious. You actually physically see a Z there, or at least I do, maybe because I planned the thing. But yeah, you kind of shoot for that so that there's a natural flow to the. You never want to lose the reader while they're going through panels. Mm-hmm. And it's surprisingly easy to lose them, frankly, if you don't sort of think of the page and how things are on it. So I try to lean on that Z pattern as often as I can to make sure there's some clarity to the flow. And there's another Z if you go across Loki, so that middle panel across Loki's, his face and his arm, then down at an angle towards the lady with the pushing the stroller. And the perspective is done so that it follows that Z line. And then across the stroller to the car to the next panel where Spidey is. And if you notice, like I don't know, if maybe no one gives a shit about this, so forgive me if I'm getting far into the weeds, but I have it so that that panel is sort of bleeding off to the bottom right-hand corner. Like Larry Hama will tell you like about you want every page to feel like it's ending on a cliffhanger and you want to turn that page. And so I can't always do that with the story because I'm not in charge of it, but I can try to do it visually. Mm-hmm. And so I try to have the pages end with some kind of a tell that's sliding you off the page to try to get you to flip it to the next page.
No, I mean it makes perfect sense. I love it, but it's funny. I mean, you just think in the Z pattern now, so but you didn't draw it. It just naturally happens, right? Yeah. I mean, it's part of your toolbox. So you just go right towards it. So as Mike said, he'll be happy if nobody buys this one because he wants to keep it. So yeah, no, it's a gorgeous page. This is from the next issue though, 796. It's page 2. It's lot 4, and it's $950. And all of these pages are on 11 by 17. Everybody, I know some artists use different sizes, these days, but Mike is working on 11 by 17s.
Yep. Yeah, and this is a big splash page with the anti-venom sort of making Spidey look stupid again. Uh, so yeah, you're supposed to have this kind of classic like Spidey feeling like a dope in his own comic, which I always kind of love. And I hit a cat in the little window. I don't know if anybody saw the top left corner. There's a little kitty in the window there.
I see it now.
Yeah. When I would, early on in my career, when I'd be doing samples and I'd show stuff to my then girlfriend, now wife, and she would be pretty ruthless about her critiques, and she'd always say like, "Why isn't there stuff in the window?" And I draw this huge, like detailed city scene, and she'd say, like, the windows look like they're too empty. You need to put curtains in in the windows or something. So I always have that in the back of my head. Like I should try to make, even something as mundane as that interesting to look at. So yeah.
That's funny. Now you can go back to your wife and say, "See, I drew a cat."
See, there you go. And she'll say, "Why aren't there curtains? Where's the furniture? How come I can't see a sofa?"
Well, it's funny how those things creep into your work and your everyday work, right? I mean, just in general, it doesn't matter. You're an artist. I mean, it happens probably to everybody where you're reminded of something that somebody, a close friend or family member, critiqued you at some point, and it comes back to haunt you later. So,
right,
or not haunt you. I mean.
No, but so, I think if it's valid and it's coming from a good place, criticism is going to make your work better. As long as you're not too sensitive about it and you're not getting hurt, it can be. I mean, she probably said that to me decades ago, and I still have it in the back of my head. But
right,
it's one of those things that people have gotten to know me for now, right? Like people will point out, "Oh, your backgrounds are really fun," so. It's not such a bad thing.
Hey, quick question from
yes.
Robert was asking you about the taper of the of Spidey's costume, whereas traditionally it's more tighter around the waist and yours was wider. I mean, was this a design choice or was it editorials?
The belt part, is that?
It's probably better if I show it on the other one. It's even harder to see it here, I guess. But
so along the belt, I will say that. I thought I made it narrower. So like I think it's supposed to be 2 webs wide, and I made it 1. And that was done on purpose because the webbing thing was a big challenge for me because I wanted to make sure that I kept it accurate, but that it made sense, especially the hands. Like there's 2 spots on Spidey's costume that are kind of stress inducing. One is the hands, and one is the like sort of side back of the neck, where you got to make the webbing take this turn, and it has to make sense,
Mm-hmm.
So with the waist, I remember thinking like I'm gonna screw this up, and I'm never gonna keep it consistent. So I'm just gonna make it 1 layer of webbing as opposed to 2. So it's a little narrower than normal, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But I knew I would remember it and keep it consistent because the webbing is the thing I would screw up the most often, man. I think Terry Pallett was inking these, and every so often he'd have to remind me, like, "Dude, you got the webbing going the wrong direction." So yeah, that might, unless I'm misunderstanding the question.
I think maybe he was more talking about how it comes down from his chest to the belt, and so the area around, and I guess above where the single width webbing around his waist would go.
That mine is wider.
That it's wider.
Yeah, that's all me. Like that.
That's
yeah,
all
editorial.
you.
Editorial was cool about. Right. Yeah, they were pretty hands off and let me, as long as it's recognizable as Spider-Man. Yeah, they were cool with however.
Yeah. Well, that's good. As long as you're consistent.
Awesome. Right on.
So another page from the book we just showed. This is from $7.96 and lot 5, $400. This one's just kind of an overall fun page. I mean, as far as the storytelling goes and with the characters, I really like this one.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah, it's funny because I had to come up with some big machine thing that is just. It was so the idea was that they were at this facility to test some machine out, and the machine wasn't important. Right, it was sort of like the MacGuffin. It was just a thing that drove the story, and there was something else that ended up being more important. So for the design of that machine thing in the background, I just took, I literally just was Googling, big cogs and machines. I think I went with an alternator from an old car as one section of it that you can't quite see. It's behind the Hobgoblin's feet on that last panel. And I just sort of blew up the scale just because I thought it would look fun, like the giant penny in Batman's cave.
Right.
So yeah, those are like all actual machine parts that I just sort of scaled up for this imaginary machine test thing that we're gonna do.
Wow, that's very nice. I mean, do you fret a lot with perspective when you're putting things together? I mean, or is that really where you start, I guess, in some way?
Yeah, I think I tend to, if I'm going to lay out a panel with a character, I try to, usually the first thing I'll do is think about where the horizon line is. It's the easiest way to sort of lay out figures in the space that makes sense. And then I will try to, from the horizon line, think of a box that sort of a stage for the characters to inhabit. And then I'll start blocking in the figures themselves. It just makes the most sense to me. It feels more real. It feels more grounded. And I want to avoid things that take you out of the scene and make you feel like, oh, wait, that doesn't look right. So, yeah, I do tend to start with that first, when blocking in the page itself.
Sure. I saw Wes said these were inked, he'd be all over them. There are some inked Spider-Man pages.
Yes.
Superior Spider-Man, after a few different things. They're kind of near the middle of the stuff that we're showing today. So let's see here. Okay, so this is same issue, 796. It's lot 6 at 450. Again, a lot of perspective work on this one, and in different ways. But yeah, I love that. The last panel was awesome.
Yeah, and there's a piece missing visually. So I did, once we finished this page, there was so the Hobgoblin's like screaming at Spidey, and so Spidey's not just being a weirdo in this scene. He's hitting him with these like sonic bursts, and I didn't want to draw them in. I thought it would look cooler if we did it in the color stage. So when I scanned this, I then drew these sort of sonic waves hitting Spidey digitally, and then sent that over to the colorist to say, like, this is what I'd like that sonic blast to look like. But I wanted it to be transparent because I didn't want it to give it like a physical feel. I wanted it to feel like waves of sound hitting him. So that's why you get that funny kind of like him with his mouth open and Spidey covering his ears. And also, when you're laying out the pages, you try to do it so that, again, you're going left to right. So the panel above the one where Spidey's holding his ears, you have the Hobgoblin about to deliver this like sonic blast, and he's kind of looking subtly down at Spidey, so that you go from him to Spidey, who's now getting hit by these waves. And by putting Spidey on the left versus the right, so if you put something on a page on the left, you tend to read that first. Except in this case, you're seeing Spidey get hit by these waves first before you see the guy delivering the waves, these sonic waves. And it was a subtle way of me showing that he's been enduring this blast for a little bit, if that makes any sense. So you're seeing Spidey's reaction to the waves, and then you see the guy continuing to blast them with them. So it's a subtle storytelling thing that I'll tweak and play with if I get a chance to. But that's why that last panel looks the way it does. It's missing the sonic waves, and I've specifically laid out the thing so that you read it left to right, so that you're seeing Spidey first, then Hobgoblin second.
Sure. And I can see the Z pattern on here. One big Z.
There it is. It's one big Z. You got it. Literally, it is. It's
I'm going to be looking for this now from now on, Mike. It's going to become part of my my Thursday show. I'm going to be pointing out. You totally got it.
I mean, it's really designed to go all the way across the entire page. There's another bunch of these.
Yes, exactly. So we're switching titles too on this one. This is lot 7 at $400. This is from the I don't remember which number of the Daredevil series it's from. It's from the 2019 series. It's issue 26. This was your kind of your last work with Marvel, right? Before
the last series that was on. This was during the events of the stuff, the Venom stuff they were doing, and the Null storyline, and so this was Daredevil in jail, which when we started splitting up, Marco would do the stuff with Electra, and I was ending up with the jail scenes and stuff. So it was a cool way of splitting up the book visually, and I got to do this cool action sequence where these Venom symbiotes take over guards and prisoners inside the jail itself.
Yeah, I see on this stuff again. It's like back to the panel layout. I love non-traditional stuff. So breaking the lines, having the line in vertical or at an angle like that is just cool. It works with the action, and
Awesome.
and like you said, brings your eye around. And the last panel is it's just great when he clocks him in the head right
Yeah. And I remember these pages. I had to redraw these faces. Actually, now that I think of it, because I drew them as just like regular Venom, right? Like, so they had the big teeth and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had an editorial note where they wanted them to look more like these smiley things that I guess tie into what they were doing with the Null storyline stuff. So yeah, I don't know if they'll show on the pages themselves, but this is one of those cases where you drew. Sometimes this happens. You'll draw an entire sequence, and then a note will come in after the fact, and you got to sort of like not start from scratch, but erase big chunks and rework things.
Sure. I mean, as long as you haven't sent it to the inker already, that's all right.
Yeah. I mean, but even that happens. There are times every so often when a book is done and all of a sudden you got to make a tweak. So, but hopefully it doesn't happen often. And because of the way I tend to work, where I will send in pages every day or every couple days, we're usually pretty far ahead, so we have some time to make these changes. So yeah, it works out usually.
So you don't think every other artist at DC were told to draw Wonder Woman's nose differently all of a sudden?
I wonder, man. I don't know. I'm guessing after. I'm guessing no. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing they don't want. For continuity's sake, I'm guessing they wouldn't want to. But who knows? Maybe I'll start a trend.
So next up is Lot 8, Daredevil again. He's not fighting Venoms here, but guards themselves. So this one's $300.
Yeah, this was a fun one too because I got to do just an old school, just him whooping ass, no monsters or whatever. There's that first panel. I was worried it would be too weird. I love this kind of stuff, but you'll notice that it looks like there's a floating hand grabbing the nightstick, and then in the next panel he's hitting it. It's where his arm would be. So if you look at that panel, I wanted it to read like you were dollying across the scene. So there's a divider there, which I'm not so sure it's clear to folks who are seeing it on the screen. But there's a divider on the panel there, but it's as if you're seeing the complete scene. That first section is just the part where he's grabbing the club. I don't know. I'm a sucker for that kind of storytelling, but I'm always a little leery of it. People looking at it going, "What the hell's happening?"
Well, it's funny. Yeah. I didn't notice it when I was making the slide, but no, I think that's cool. I mean, there was some art we were looking at recently where they weren't drawing action lines, as far as like to illustrate movement. And here you kind of avoided that by breaking that panel into two, just to show that both interactions with the guards there. So that's cool.
Right. And it gives you it's like a visual way of showing just how fast the guy's moving. Because I wanted readers to get a sense of he doesn't have to be in jail. Like he could absolutely break out if he chose to. And this is where he's sort of proving that point.
Very, very cool. So let's see, that was Lot 8. And Mike points out the weapons are making Z patterns, guiding the eye across like that. Yep.
Yeah.
Mike knows what he's talking about.
I know. It's a little too on the nose, I guess.
No, well, trust me, I'm going to be looking at every artwork that I look at now. I'm going to be looking for Z patterns. Somebody once showed me, like a triangle pattern on comic strips that a lot of strip artists used, and so every time I look at a piece of strip art, I'm looking for these triangle patterns now, to lead your eye, across the strip. And so now the Z thing is going to be something I'm going to be looking for on every art page now.
Yeah, and this is funny because on that last panel, I tried to put a sort of a break, so there's a line there where he has to deliver a line to this guy he's trying to intimidate. And so that's why it is a very rigid vertical like him standing upright holding that other guy. That's a visual break. That's a visual, like, actual wall for a moment for you to, like, you've gone through this very fast sequence, and then I want to, like, just slam the brakes and make you stop for a second and take a breath and go, holy crap, what just happened? And then he delivers the line. So, you got to also sort of know when to slam the brakes on that pattern.
Well, no, it's and you're right. You used it on that Spider-Man when he was fighting the giant bee too, kind of
Yeah,
a similar. Yep.
yeah,
And see, I'm going to see that on everything now because I'm going to look at this next page from Lot 9, and it's got the Electra, kind of stopping your eye right there at the
right.
close of things.
Yep, yep. That's exact. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's and then that one in particular, um, I will try sometimes to take a bunch of panels and then drop them onto a page as if, because you'll notice, like, she's not in a panel in that last panel, although I did do a square sort of shadow so that it feels like a subtle panel. Um, but I will often do this thing where it'll be a bunch of, like, traditional comic panels, and then there'll be like a bleed on the last panel or the first one. So they all feel like they're tiled on top of a separate drawing altogether from the scene that serves as kind of an exclamation point for whatever's happening on the end of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Well, this is Lot 9. I didn't state that when we got on here, but it's $300, and from Daredevil 31. And I know we've got this is from issue 32, and this one is one where it's actually two pieces of art, and
right.
I can show the next one in a second. But so this is Lot 10 at $1,000. The title page, I assume, for this issue, and this is the second piece of art as well.
Right.
Because,
right.
To explain to me how this piece of art was used with this page here.
Yeah. So this was this is a storyline where, like, there's Bullseye sort of on the loose, and he's just killing people left and right. So we did this thing where Chip wanted the fact that Bullseye's on the loose sort of announced in this floating newspaper that you see in the extreme foreground on the right corner, and that last illustration with Bullseye is meant to be on that front page of the newspaper that we put in digitally. So I just thought, instead of drawing it on the page, I'm going to draw it separately, just to really make it, like, I wanted it to be as important as the rest of the page, not just kind of an afterthought thing. Mm-hmm. And then that little floating newspaper was something that we put on. I didn't feel so. If I remember correctly, we did this shortly after. God, one of the many public shootings we've had, unfortunately, in this country, and in this case, it was Bullseye sort of like shooting people from building to rooftops and stuff. And I thought, I did two things. First, I made the character look like myself, so I didn't want to. I guess it's a subtle way of making it, like, clear that I don't want to be insensitive to the fact that, like, shootings are a real thing that we all have to deal with. And I put myself in there as a way of saying, like, I get it. But then, we ended up covering the head with that floating newspaper from this panel here, just because I think editorial felt like it probably was a smarter call. And also, in some ways, it almost made the page that much more impactful. Like, not 100% knowing what Elektra was having to face, because she was sort of on her own at this point. So yeah, that's why that's why there's two pieces of artwork with this big splash page.
No, that makes sense. So why was the Bullseye image kind of treated a little bit differently, so so that it could look more like a photograph on the page versus you drawing it here?
Yeah, and the Marvel folks did that internally, but yeah, they sort of went in and they, you can kind of free transform images in Photoshop so that they kind of bend and twist. So they did some of that to fit it onto that newspaper so that it looked like it was on that page, and they did a great job. It looked awesome, worked out well.
All right, very cool. So let's go ahead. We're going to take a look at lot 11, and this is from the same book. And after this one, we'll have some inked pieces for those of you who like that.
Awesome.
Lot 11 is 350. This is page 17 from that Daredevil 32 book with Elektra in action on this one.
Yeah, yeah, and this was a sequence where um, we had to do some mirroring. Where so if you notice, this page is sort of split in half, where
Mm-hmm.
half of it is we were doing this in the issues themselves, where half the story would be about um, uh, the Daredevil in jail stuff, and then the other half was Elektra as Daredevil stuff. And in this case, we were doing it all in the same action sequence, and I wanted to sort of marry the two, where you're seeing, as if you're seeing both moments at the same time, um, but also make the actions feel authentic. That's why I did the thing with where she's using her sai in a way that was like realistic, like using it to flip the knife out of Bullseye's hand. So that for me, when you're doing action sequences, if you add a little detail like that, it feels that much more authentic. But it also makes it feel like the characters in genuine danger. When you're doing sort of big fantastical fight scenes, there's a part of me that always feels like I don't know if I buy that anything's going to happen to this character. Um, Whereas if you kind of add this kind of detail, to me, I just feel like it drives home that anything could happen to this person.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
It's
great story.
also, by the way,
Yeah.
it's also off kilter on purpose, where like that first panel is tilted all the way, sort of heavy on the left, purposely where Daredevil is, um, and then does the opposite, sort of teeters for panel 2, sliding into panel 3, and then teeters again. So that I also wanted the reader to have this sort of like uncomfortable, like being off kilter the entire time, because you're bouncing between the two moments in time, and all this stuff is happening super fast, and everything looks like it's falling apart and it's crazy. So I wanted to have that feeling in the panels also.
Well, you definitely achieved it. That's for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and even that center panel at the bottom, where it's almost in perspective, as
Yeah.
far as the window goes. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's take a look at lot 12. So this one is I've got two pieces for it as well. I've got the pencil piece and the inked piece. So this is, of
Yeah.
course, the inked one. This is from Deadpool, and I love the letter, that the hand lettering there with the fist in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That
It's
was
fun, man.
really
This
fun.
is, this is back when I could still ink myself. It was during Deadpool when the book was going great. Marvel wanted to start double shipping it, and they wanted me on as much stuff as possible. And the easiest way to do that is just to have me partner with an inker. Up until till this point in my career, I had almost exclusively inked my own stuff. So this is sort of I'm trying to remember when this was exactly, but this was in the beginning of my Deadpool run. So there aren't a ton of these inked Deadpool pages, but this is fun to see. Yeah, and I love getting to do hand lettering. To be frank, like it tickles me.
All right, here was the pencil page from that as well.
Yeah.
So back then, did you do the tight pencils on 11 by 17, and then you lightbox the inking?
No, I think so they are 11 by 17, but I would just blue line them, just basically the same way that
Oh,
folks
okay,
are
cool.
working on it. Yeah, so that's why I would always have both. I didn't pencil as tightly as you can kind of see here. It's when you're inking yourself, you have more latitude for like sort of doing it in shorthand and drawing, essentially finishing the drawing later in the ink stage. So
Sure.
those pencils could be quite a bit looser than I would do now, which is fun.
Yeah, well, it's like you say, you've got to be tighter when you're having somebody else ink it.
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
makes perfect sense.
yeah.
But so this is, even like you said, this is early in Deadpool, so it's predates the Spider-Man stuff by 5 or 6 years, but you're still kind
It
of doing
does.
you're doing the same panel structures
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the Z pattern here as well.
yeah. And this was when Spidey was, and this is a funny premonition, but this is when they were first doing the Superior Spider-Man stuff, and so this was Peter, but I'm sorry, this was Spider-Man, but no one knew it was really Doc Ock. So there was a lot of like room for comedy where Deadpool's treating him like it's Peter when it's not at all, and he's not, and Doc's not getting any of the jokes, and it was a funny thing, man.
Well, speaking of Superior Spider-Man, that's what we're going to switch to next.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Lot 13. This is $400 from Superior Spider-Man 3, page 11, and you got Terex pretty much putting it to the Superior Spider-Man there.
Yeah. Oh man, I got trolled pretty hard with this thing because everybody kept saying it started as a joke, or rather, it started by as somebody just being confused on my Instagram and thinking that I was drawing Spider-Man fighting Darkseid. and and once one person said it, it became like this ongoing joke online where I was just getting trolled to death with Darkseid jokes. So every time I see one of these pages, there's a part of me that wants to just cringe. but Terex was a huge. I mean, it's such a fun character to draw because it was like he was so overpowered, and he could do so much damage. It was like drawing a Godzilla comic. Like every time he would punch something, buildings would tremble and shake, and it was just so much fun, man. And I got to work with the great Wade Von Gro-Badger on inks for this thing. Like this was shortly after he had been working with Stewart for a long time, and Stewart. This is when he announced his sort of taking a step away from mainstream comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I told everybody at Marvel, I'm like, pretty please, can I work with Wade, please? And he said yes, and I was like thrilled. So I got got to work with him, and so that's why we have the original pages actually inked. He inked on my original pencils.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, just swinging back there's a question from Christopher Daly. He was curious about he's never seen any of your Queen and Country pages, and do you know why that is? I mean, have you kept them?
I think we've just sort of held on to them. I don't know why. I guess I have a soft spot for the book, and so I guess I just sort of sat on them. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll offer them to the Cadence guys. They've been really, really amazing to work with, and I trust them. So if you're looking for something, maybe reach out to them, and I'll think it over. I don't want to promise anything because, like I said, I'm sort of partial to the thing. But yeah, I don't have a good reason for why other than just nostalgia.
I don't blame you. Well, like the style pages, right? I mean, you don't want to let those go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's certain pages that we sort of stash because either I have a sort of sentimental attachment to it, or just want to hold on to because I think if I ever kick the bucket, my kids can use it to catch up on bills or something.
Right. Well, that's always a concern.
Yeah.
As far as,
sure.
I hear you there. I think it's a wise thing to hold back some art, instead of just like rolling it all out there. But you got to work with Rucka on that, so I mean that was awesome. Stuff would have been pretty darn special.
He's pretty amazing. I mean, each one of those scripts, if I remember correctly, so it'll be a 22-page book. Each script was probably about 45 pages. I mean, by the time we were done, and not because it was like wordy and nonsensical. I mean, it was every page felt it. You could tell the guy wrote prose. You'd read these scripts and they were entertaining all on their own. And I remember thinking, like, man, 4 issues into this thing, it's like a mini novel. Like he's an incredible writer for sure, man.
Well, very, very, very cool. Well, I can, I get it, but yes, you could always just say that if somebody's interested in something they've never seen before, to contact Cadence, and you never know what you may be able to work.
Yeah, for sure. I will consider it. I promise.
All right, so let's take a look at the next lot again from Superior Spider-Man 4. This one's $500. Great city shot on here. Great perspective. I mean, again, in a classic image in that first panel, even with the cast.
Broken arm. Yeah. It was weird. So we were trying to give San Francisco its own Spider-Man. So, Otto was working at like a tech company, and it was tricky because not a lot of San Francisco has these big buildings. So we had to be very specific about where he could sort of swing around like Spider-Man. And I would try really hard to do as much research as possible so that they were actual buildings. I've never been to San Francisco, but I knew that if we were going to do a San Francisco Spider-Man that I wanted it to like if you were from there, I wanted you to be able to look at this thing and go, hey, I know that building. So sometimes it made more for more work. I don't remember the name of that building in the background there that comes to that weird point, but that was a pain in the butt to draw because it didn't have it had curved corners and then it tapered. So yeah, that wasn't always fun, but you know it was a great book. I had a great time on it. And this particular sequence where he has the broken arm is after having fought Terax, and now he's just trying to be helpful, you know, like in an everyday kind of way. Otto is kind of a egomaniac, and he is sort of learning to care about people. So this was him, even though he's injured. In some ways, this was almost more heroic than him fighting Terax because he sort of like he was always going to be cool with fighting. Was he going to be cool with just like swinging around and being Spidey and saving people and pulling people out of rubble and things like that? So yeah, this was a fun page.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you.
But it's back to your attention to detail. That's why you know things slow down a little bit when you start worrying about getting it just right. But I get it. I mean, you wanted people to feel like they were in the right city too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
this was fun too.
This was I love this page. This thing's awesome.
Thank you.
And now, are these inks by Wayne as well, right?
Yeah, Wade. Yeah, it's all. It's all good. Normally he would sign. I'm looking at the page and I don't see his signature up at the top right hand corner. So, but yeah, these are all Wade. You can tell by that razor sharp hatching, which he does a beautiful job at. And this was a sequence where they're having to fight this sort of giant demon dude. I can't remember his name. Oh my god, I'm so terrible. But it's really fun because he turns himself into a kind of kaiju. Which if we show any more pages, you'll see what I mean. But it's a fun sequence for sure, especially since like Otto is this like cynical, science-minded guy, and he has to work with this magic, wizard guy, and he's not exactly thrilled about it. So yeah, it's fun.
An unlikely team up, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, so that was 15. We can take a look at 16 because now you get to see
the giant guy,
the kaiju,
yeah. So the idea was that I forget this character's name, but he can summon demons out of his chest, and he's essentially sort of absorbing them and getting bigger and bigger. And they get this idea to trade off weapons, basically. So there's no big buildings around this area of San Francisco where this sequence is taking place. So Spidey gets the cape so he can sort of fly around and fight this dude. And Doc Strange is using Otto's, the claw arms thing to essentially operate to go into this guy's head. And it's just a cool sequence. It was a cool, fun, experience to get the switch off and draw Spidey flying around with a cape. It was just cool. Very, very fun.
Yeah, I hadn't read this, but I was looking at it, wondering why did they change, switch the costumes there. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
All right, take a look at the next one here. So lot 17, still a little bit of that battle going on with you got Superior Spider-Man with the cape still on there. Right. I mean, it's just that first panel alone. I mean, just everything is so busy in this, but
yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's like these are these demonically possessed people, and they're sort of like that's what this guy's sort of made out of at the moment. All these people, they're dumping out and just attacking Doc Strange. So it's just fun. It's the kind of stuff that's unique to comics that you always hope you get to draw. Some weird stuff, and this was right up my alley in terms of just the scale difference between the giant demon guy and the small ones, and it was just fun, man. I love this stuff.
You were well suited for it, and this page I like that it's the ink, how that top panel basically frames everything, the three panels below it. I always love techniques like that.
So, yeah, I think I touched on that with that Daredevil page, where you create a kind of splash page and then layer paneled scenes on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fun.
And this is lot 18, $600 from issue 10, page 20.
Yeah, this was cool. This was part of the Spider-Verse thing that Marvel was doing there for a while. And this is, there's a universe out there where Norman Osborn is the one that gets bit by the radioactive spider and gets all the Spider-Man powers. But of course, it's Norman Osborn, so he's still a SOB. And he's come to our universe and he's decided he doesn't like Otto very much. So I don't want to give too much away, but it's really cool. Christos did an amazing job. We talked about Greeks earlier. Christos is an interesting writer of Greek origin, and you guys should look him up. He's pretty amazing.
That's cool. Hey, before we move on to the next piece of art, I forgot to show this earlier, but Jamal was asking about where are all the Hysteria pages?
Yeah, I don't. First of all, it's ironic because Jamal's probably the only person outside of myself that owns a Hysteria piece. I gifted to him many years ago. I don't generally sell Hysteria stuff. That's a little too close to my heart. So, not that I don't love all my work, but the Hysteria stuff I've kept all to myself pretty much. So, I'm sorry.
Nothing wrong with that at all, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. 18. Let's take a look at 19. This one's from
Superior.
Man. This page is just so incredible. I mean, those first three panels, just the detail alone packed in there with the backgrounds.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, just the action is crazy good.
You, man. Yeah, this is and ironically, this is him putting together his own team. It doesn't look like it because he's beating the hell out of everybody. But this is him taking what do they call the night shift. And it's all these sort of like monster type characters, and Otto's aware that he can't be everywhere all at once, and that a lot of people still think of him as a bad guy. So he's putting a sort of team together, and he's doing it in that uniquely Otto way of sort of like like just beating the hell out of them until they submit to him, and then offering them
team or else.
Yeah, basically. And again, it takes place in San Francisco, so I had to, I picked a street that felt unique. I just wanted to make sure it didn't ever feel like just another New York somewhere else. So yeah, it was a unique challenge, but it was really fun. And Marvel did this cool thing where we were going from Amazing Spider-Man, and then there's a after credit scene in that last, I think it's like issue 700, where there's a big showdown. I'm trying not to give away story stuff. So where we introduced Superior Octopus, and then I mean he had already existed, but we sort of showed that they were going to do something with him. And then that the plan was always to go from that one single Superior Octopus story into Superior Spider-Man. As a way of like in steps introducing the series, which I thought was fun, and it was a smart way of throwing it all together. It was cool.
Yeah, well, this is a great page. It really is.
Well, thank you.
But this is actually the last Marvel page we're going to show too, because we're moving
right on
to we've got 6 Wonder Woman Evolution pages to show off. So let me switch things here, and I can show lot 20. This was from issue 3, page 14, splash page, and it's $800.
This was fun.
Well, the backgrounds on here must have been a bit of a chore, because how do you draw all that and get the perspective right and everything?
Yeah. I mean, and again, this is me being probably overthinking stuff and being weird, but I drew those mountains in perspective so that they felt believable. But other artists have like teased me about this. Like, you're probably the only person that draws mountains in perspective. Because you're a goofball.
That's the first thing I saw when I looked at it, and I thought, wow, that's a lot more effort than most people would put into a piece like that.
Yeah, and seeing this page out of context is also probably weird, because you see, this big threatening. This is Swan, Silver Swan from DC, who's been we basically, she's sort of being corrupted by those nanites that give her powers, and they're taking over more and more, so she's getting more and more like extreme and crazy looking, and it was fun to get to redesign her and tweak the design in a way that suited the story. But Wonder Woman doesn't look terribly concerned. This thing that doesn't match everything else. But she's in mortal danger. She just sort of doesn't buy that any of this is real in the storyline, and I don't want to give too much away. Um, but it was a cool way of, I had to find a way to make this one single page as threatening as it could possibly be, and then show the hero in this mortal danger without her quite investing in it herself, if that makes any sense. So I
Well,
wanted to make these
it
buildings all
definitely looks like
feel,
she's not concerned.
yeah. So I wanted to make the mount, and it's not any particular place on Earth; it's on another planet, and I wanted them to all feel like, like what is it, stalagmites that are on the ground, or is it? Wait, I always get this confused. Stalactites hang tight to,
Mites are on the
yeah,
ground. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's it.
Mhm.
Like she could fall on at any moment and just not just die of falling from a height that is uh, not good to fall from, but also just hit one of these spiky mountaintops. I really wanted everything to feel foreboding and sharp and pointy and awful, uh, and yeah, it worked out. I think. I hope.
No, it did. Now with these, with the Wonder Woman interior pages, were they? Is there an inked version out there? Were they digital ink?
Yeah, yeah. So I work with this friend of mine, Adriano de Benedetto. I probably say his name wrong. I'm so sorry. He is in Brazil. He's been inking me for. He inked the Daredevil stuff, Wild Cards, some shorts that we did. Like he's amazing. He's super duper sharp, but he's inking over blue lines. So
Okay.
presumably there are pencils out there, or sorry, inks of all these pages out there somewhere.
Okay.
And I know he sells his work, so I can't think of who his dealer is off the top of my head, but he'll be in New York for the Comic-Con. So
you guys have met before?
We have not met in person, which is normal in comics. Yeah, I mean that's hell. I think I was on Deadpool for 2 or 3 years before I'd even heard the editor's voice. Everything was done over email.
I don't. Well, how could you make a choice to be on a book for 6 years if you didn't even,
I know.
That's funny.
But that's how most of the freelance gigs are.
Yeah.
You don't really talk with most folks, and especially if you're like me. I mean, I've started going to conventions in the last several years, but for most of my career, I have not. So I just don't know anybody, and it's probably would shock you how few times I've actually like met these people face to face, much less had a conversation or something with them over the phone. It's just yeah.
That's how it is these days.
It is.
But are you going to be at New York? So you'll get to meet him there?
I won't be. No.
So you won't. Okay.
Yeah. No,
so he'll be there, but you won't be there.
I know, man. It sucks. Especially since he doesn't get into the country as often. I think he might have been at a show in Detroit or something, but we'll figure it out one of these days. Maybe we can talk him into coming out to Baltimore, which is closer to home for me. So, and I'll be there this year, which is always fun. That's cool.
At Baltimore?
Yeah.
I'm going there for the first time. So.
Oh, right on. Swing by, and I will. I'll hug you.
Definitely. No, this was I've always wanted to go to that show. I've heard such good things about it, but I've never made it. So this will be my first year.
Yeah, Baltimore's a cool. It's a cool town. It can be rough, so be careful. But we love it. We love the show. The folks that run it, like the Nathans, are amazing people. It's a true Comic Con. Like it's there's a lot of love for comics and creators there. You'll enjoy it, especially if you are an art collector. From what I understand, most of the folks that I've met that are there collecting art just are over the moon. So it's cool.
That's exactly what I've heard. I don't know why I've never been, but I'm correcting that dilemma this year.
Awesome.
All right, so let's take a look at lot 21. This is from issue 5. This should be the title page on it, $900, and she's definitely found herself in a precarious situation.
Yeah, she's in a tight spot for sure. Yeah, and ironically, this is back on her home turf. I'm never going to say this right. Themyscira.
I think you did pretty good. I'm not gonna try. So.
Yeah, so she's being held prisoner there because she's pissed off the Amazons because she's not making enough war with she's making too nice with people, and it's annoyed her mom. So yeah, it's a fun scene. It's very cool. I It's funny because it bugged me. I was trying to draw this cell, and I remember researching it, and it bugging me that I wanted it to feel authentic, and having the two different patterns, like the stone kind of carved stone pattern of the wall, being different from the stones on the ground. But that's kind of how that would have been. So just sort of ran with it, and it was fun. I of course drew those stones on the ground in perspective so that they would feel realistic to me, although you probably can't see it in any real capacity on this page. But yeah, it's fun. Oh, and this is also her redesigned uniform that I got to do, which is also cool.
How many iterations of that you guys have to go through?
I think honestly, I think just the one. Not because I'm amazing and I just nailed it. It's just that uh, you know Stephanie was good about sort of giving me ideas for what she was hoping for, and sending over some visuals of stuff she liked, and we were sort of on the same page right out the gate. And then uh, I really think I might have just done one take on it, and they were cool with it. Except I think she had sleeves at first, if I remember correctly, and Steph was like, "Let's put her guns out," because she just liked her arms, which is a good call to be.
That's a good choice on that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the only correction I had to make, was she had sleeves on originally.
Yeah, I think that would have been more of an '80s costume, I think, with sleeves. But
Yeah,
no,
you're probably
good
right.
choice on this one.
Yeah.
So it's, actually, I can see the perspective on the floor here on this next piece from lot 22.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
You can't miss it there.
No, you can't. And I don't know why I do that to myself. It's not necessary, but it just helps me make a space that's believable. So I go through the trouble. And this is Diana talking to a young version of herself. So you get to see her sort of as a little kid. And again, she's not quite like she's in a weird mental state where she just doesn't. It's sort of a hangover from the previous page where she's not buying anything anybody's selling her, so she's a very cynical Wonder Woman at this point.
Yeah, not having read this, I was kind of getting that vibe. I wasn't quite clear what was going on, but this isn't a place where you would have that kind of an expression on your face.
Yeah.
Now it's all making sense to me.
Yeah, and you can see that nose, sort of Greek inspired, ancient Greek art inspired face and nose, which turns some people off, and that's I understand, but it suited what I wanted to do with this story, and yeah, I stand by it. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, next up, we get to see her in action a bit here on lot 23. This is from the same issue, issue 5, but it's page 19.
Yeah. Oh man, this is kind of a spoilery page if you haven't read the series. They go to sacrifice Wonder Woman to this undersea monster that Poseidon has just created, that's supposed to be particularly nasty, and of course Wonder Woman does her thing, and it's super fun, man. And again, you see all the sort of me overdoing the perspective thing on that overhang on that first panel. It's kind of a stony overhang over the ocean. But I needed that thing to be really believable, so when she crashes this monster into it, you buy it, Oh, and that second panel, I should add. I talked earlier about where you sometimes will, sort of put a panel in that's like a break, so that you stop the reader for a moment and then you let the character deliver a line. And this was one of those panels, and it's not, it's in the middle of the sequence, but I needed sort of a pause so that Wonder Woman could say, deliver her line, her sort of like get to the chopper kind of line. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense there. Uh-oh. I can't hear you.
Oh, Sorry, I had
Oh,
actually turned my mic off there for a second,
okay.
I guess. Yeah, I got to remember to keep my hand off the keyboard. I have a shortcut that actually mutes my mic. A
Gotcha.
comment from Marvin here says, "Man, I hope you get a chance to come out sometime. It would be great to meet you." So
Oh, come out to where?
I don't
Did he
know,
say?
maybe one of the shows we were talking about. You
Yeah,
never know.
I'm definitely been more. I mean, my rule is sort of if I can drive to the show, if I can get there in a day,
Then
then
it's okay.
yeah, it's pretty, and that sometimes means even small local shows just to have fun. If I got to get on a plane or something, I'm going to be a lot more resistant. Just not because I have anything against flying, but
Right.
it's the schedule. On a monthly book is so insane that whenever you go to say San Diego, and it's a whatever it's a 4 or 5 day show plus
5,
a
yeah,
couple
with
days
breathing
for
there.
travel. Like it'll easily kill a week and a half, 2 weeks. In the middle of a monthly book can be. I don't know how these guys do it. Frankly, I don't know how everybody like turns off their production to go to San Diego every
They're either
year.
miserable before or they're miserable after. I think.
Yeah. But New York, I probably could get to. I haven't, I haven't been invited, and I haven't tried to stop everything and figure out how to go. But that's close enough to home I could get to.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's we got 2 more pieces here,
Okay.
and let's see. This is from issue 6.
Oh man.
Splash page here for $850, and yeah, it's there's lots of spoilers. I assume that you can't talk about here.
Yeah. I don't want to give too much away with this one, but it was very involved. It's a pivotal moment in the story. Obviously, like I had to draw her in this containment unit, and I couldn't just draw it from straight on because I'm a bozo. So I did it in this like three-point perspective, and it's a slight. There's some slight distortion, which you can get. Most people would just call it kind of a fisheye lens. There's a distortion from having the vanishing points closer together, and I was sort of going for that kind of weird look to it. But yeah, this was it's yeah. I'm trying not to say too much and mess up the story if you haven't read it.
But see, but now I know why it takes you 3 days to do a DPS or whatnot. Again, you're just putting so much effort into it, and you're making life hard for yourself.
I am. I don't know. I'm not. I'm like I said. I'm not too well. I don't know why I do it.
You're covering up her nose in this one too.
I am. Oh my goodness, you're right. Yeah, man. Maybe it was all the criticism got to me, and I wanted to hide her nose.
Right. Oh man. Well, listen. We got last piece here. This is a cover,
Okay.
and this has 2 pieces. It's got a pencil piece and the ink piece. I'll show the ink piece
Boy,
first.
let's see. Oh man, there's another one. I'm not so sure I wanted to let go. It took forever.
Well, look at all the effort in the inking on this one. So this is the final out of the night. 25 at ironically $2,500 for this one. It's from the cover to issue 6.
Yeah.
And this is the inked version of it, which I mean clearly took a lot of time.
Yeah.
And let me go ahead and show the pencil version of it as well.
Right.
Man, again, you're putting super tight pencils on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, because I was going to ink the thing. I guess I'm just. I think with covers, you also want to make sure that you're selling the idea to the editorial team, and in this case, she's on this like alternate version of Earth, and it's such a specific place in New York that you really need to make sure it's everybody's seen Times Square, so you really need to make sure that you nail it, that it's recognizable. So I probably was a little tighter than I needed to be, but this is also one of those covers that like there's so much going on that I was always afraid it would be too busy, and because you want covers to read so that you can see them from across the room and they make you want to come over and check out the book. So I was very, very careful to, although there's all this craziness going on, to make the characters read very simply, make the outlines very clear, and you telegraph as clearly as you possibly can how they feel, right? And I have Wonder Woman sort of just looking in utter shock, and the other character above her is of this world, so she's sort of looking more guarded and careful. But I'm also having her look away, so that there's this subtle. We talked a lot about directing the eye. She's looking over to the top left, right? So that would be the
Mhm.
beginning of where that Z pattern starts. And you see her looking that way, and you sort of follow her body, and her hand is literally pointing at Diana's head. Her knee is pointing at Diana's arm. So either way, whichever way you are directed, you're still going to make your way to Diana and her expression, and hopefully see things from her point of view, and just be shocked at how this turn of events is affecting her.
Yeah, no, it's a gorgeous piece of art, man. It
Well,
really
thank
is.
you, thank you, thank you, thank
I,
you.
but now, yeah, just out of curiosity, time you put into this one.
Yeah, this probably. I mean, like normally I'd pencil a cover in a day, ink a cover in a day. This is probably one of those like 3 day type of things, if not more. Um, which can be tricky because it's not like covers pay that much more than a page, and
Hmm.
however much time you spend on it, it's not like you get paid more for spending more time on these things. But I want the covers to be special, and I want them to be like just sort of. I just want to knock everybody's socks off and make sure that no one's not picking up this comic because I didn't do my job well. You know what I mean? And
Right.
yeah, I really want to as much as as my meager abilities will allow me. I want to make these things, make you eager to pick up this comic when you look at this cover.
Well, I mean, it is stunning. It really
Oh,
is. I
thank
mean,
you. I appreciate that.
and I don't see. I'm looking at the raw scan that I got too. I don't really see any whiteout in it either. So
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
are you are you
I
that
mean,
good? You,
listen.
you never have
Um,
to make corrections?
no, I think I'm not that good. I think it's mostly just a lot of pre-planning. Like you before these are done, there's a lot of layouts. There's little figure studies. Um, you saw the pencils are pretty tight. So by the
Yeah, so
time
you've
I'm
already got
getting,
the hand motions all down, but what
yeah,
you've already because
exactly.
you did such a tight pencil piece. Okay,
Right,
yeah,
right,
I get it.
right.
I get it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of muscle memory. Now, some of those little areas where you might see the building where there's like little, it's kind of like there's a on the left hand screen towards the right of that panel, you can kind of see some buildings where the the wall is supposed to look collapsed, and I would have just done a black shape and probably gone back in with a white Posca pen and like drawn some of that, those tattered shards of building and wall or debris. So I will go in with white, but generally, like there's not a huge mistake just because of having planned it in steps.
Well, then it's all about execution. So yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that makes perfect
thank you.
sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Well, we didn't sell anything, so but that doesn't mean people don't have the opportunity to pick them up later. So I
Yeah.
won't recap anything. We've got lots 1 through 25 are still out
Okay.
there, and the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is, we get lots of views after the show is over because a lot of people don't have time to tune in on a Saturday afternoon.
I totally get it, and I'm just grateful everybody showed up. I see. I'm sorry I haven't been reading the chats. I'm trying to focus on the questions and stuff, but it is what it is, and I'm just grateful to get to talk with you, man. And
No, this was a lot of fun, man. It was. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've known about several of the books that you worked on, but it was fun getting the opportunity to talk with you and to learn
awesome.
a lot more about your work. Because I think what you're really doing a lot more than some other creators are, and it's always just that's indicative of the kind of person you are. You can't take it easy.
Yeah.
Clearly, you don't do that on your art, and then doing all the work that you do on Patreon and the other places and teaching. And again, that is you're a workaholic.
A little bit, but I love this, and I'm grateful for everybody that supports it. So I'm happy to do it, man.
Maki Poo asked if you had any Conan pages. Is that another question for Cadence?
Uh, I hit Cadence up. I don't know that I've ever given him any Conan stuff, to be frank.
All right. Well, here I'll just highlight it again. So anybody that is watching the show after the fact or has questions about artwork that may or may not be available for sale one day, you can always email Andrew
Yeah,
at cadencecomicart.com and hit him up with those questions. If you're watching the show afterwards and there's something you want to buy, email Andrew and he'll take care of it for you.
yeah. Andrew's great about it. Andrew's still there's a particular page that a guy asked for, and every time I see Andrew, he's like, "Okay, have you thought about that page? Have you?" Because I kind of want to hold on to it. So just know if there's a specific page that you want and you ask Andrew for it, he will advocate for me giving it up and stop being a weirdo about it. So he's great. He's great for this stuff. So yeah, hit him up.
All right. Jeff Weddings asked me about recapping the claim info. You mean just the general, like what the shipping and payment info was? I can go over that again, but yeah, but the main thing will be to email Andrew and get he'll be on the case for any of the artworks we've shown today or things out there that we didn't show that you may be interested in picking up. He's going to be on it, but I think I already, what was it? Payment options, we already know those, and shipping options are out there as well. So, Mike, again, thank you so much for doing this. I sincerely appreciate it. I love the fact that you had a Gilligan hat.
We'll end the show. We'll end the show.
That is, yeah, exactly. I'm leaving mine. Well, I'll end the show with mine as well. Perfect. So yeah, this is a first. And with Matt, we don't have the same gumball machines in the background, but close enough.
I'll get a Thor hammer for the next show. Next time.
All right, man. Well, listen. If there's ever anything I can do for you, please, hit me up. And same thing with the team Cadence too. They're awesome. I'm always happy to help out, and I hope I get to do more shows with the creators over there too. This is fun.
Yeah, hit them up. I mean, honestly, just as a fan, the guys that the Cadence guys rep the guys and gals are amazing. So yeah, definitely bug Andrew for some more artists to come on.
I will definitely do that. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, on their Saturday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you on Monday at my next show.